Hey, Cinth, this is Chris. Thanks again for all the hard work you put in on the particles. That definitely makes a really big difference. Now it's time to start working on the ships in the same way, focusing on the LODs. Um, Now we have some different challenges and actually a lot more opportunities with the um, ships and how the LODs on them will work. There are two overall processes here, one of which is for these prototype ships that I've created that are incidentally massively inefficient when it comes to poly counts and so on. And then number two is for ships that are textured and finalized by Blue. There are a couple of things that can throw monkey wrenches into this, such as uh, pieces that are animated in some way, and also um, things that use a lot of different materials and therefore by extension textures such as the arc. So I'm going to break this into a couple of videos. This is going to be part number one, dealing with the simplest cases, which in this particular case at this time involves the AI the AI controller, the three missiles for the humans, the Laser Guardian, and the AI Master Controller. So none of these have any sort of um, textures on them, and they're just using the standard default um, uh, material. So plain white, but it's full PBR, which whatever. So I'm going to do the AI controller, and then you can do the same thing with the missiles. And these guys get a little more complicated just in terms of how many LOD levels you might need, but we'll take it one bit at a time. So first of all, there's something that you're going to be duplicating um, for the LODs, right? And then it's got the um, LOD. There's something that has to be the LOD group, and that's going to need to be whatever the ship is that's being potentially duplicated for the individuals within that. So, for instance, in a fighters group, there would be more than one. Uh, there would be a separate LOD group for each individual fighter in a squadron. So, um, with the AI controller, first thing we're going to need to do is create an empty game object inside there. Um, and we'll just go ahead and call this LOD0. And then the things that are underneath the parent object here, which, in this particular case, it just has a box collider, which is great. In some of these other cases, maybe there's something else. Yep, see, this one has a mesh renderer on it. So it's going to need a further um, segregating because you're going to want the box collider to be above the LOD on the LOD group, but you're going to want the mesh renderer to be under it. So in this particular case, what you're going to do is you're going to say, actually, we'll do it this way. Control D on Warhead Lightning. Put that all under here. And we'll just call it LOD0 because again, that's what it's going to be. And then on the parent here, we can get rid of the mesh renderer and the mesh filter. So the box collider's left. And on here, we get rid of the box collider. So we're not duplicating that in the other LODs. Now, why did I do it that way? I did it so that your child to duplicate reference still points to an actual spot. The same thing. You didn't have to relink that. So I'll go ahead and hit apply. So then this is one thing you don't have to do. So next time you'll put the LOD group on this and you're off to the races. The the nuke I think was already, nope, nuke has the same problem. EMP was already okay for some reason. Okay, so that's one thing that may or may not come up depending. Now, on the AI controller here, I'm going to go ahead and create the LOD group, and let's go ahead and make 4 LODs again. There may be some cases where you wish to create more than that, and maybe if so, that would be like the master controller. Some really crazy examples, but I think that would be pretty much it. So what we do is the same as before. Gosh. So LOD0, go ahead and get that in there. LOD1, go ahead and get that in there. LOD2, oh boy, I numbered this wrong. LOD2, and then add one more group here. Insert before cold. And we've got our LOD3. Now, we're only going to call this if it's incredibly tiny. So one of the things that's worth noting, though, is that a ship that's on the screen but being called is not a big deal because its gimbal will still be showing and still with the icon. So that's the beauty of, I talked about this back in August or something. I don't remember. August or September. September must have been. I did a video on the far zoom in AI War 2, and I was talking specifically about how it's a hybrid sort of approach, that things that are small would disappear, but the icons would stay, and all that sort of thing. And so here's where that kicks in. Now, first of all, we've got LOD0. We're not going to mess with that, but I do want to, let's see here. Once we hit LOD1, all right, sure, that's fine. This seems like a good range for LOD1, and then down to there. Maybe even this. This is a fairly big unit, so the fact that it's filling a large part of the screen, we can go ahead and keep that at LOD0. So, okay, LOD1. Now, for this, what we're going to need to do is what I'm walking you through here is the process for our untextured prototype models. So what that means is that we can do a complete batching together of the meshes that are in there without having to worry about, and actually we can just do a mesh simplify, without having to worry about let's do this first. Okay, so UDI tools, mesh merge, that pops up this thing. And so selected objects, and if we don't want build UV2, disable source meshes, whatever. Splice and merge, sure. And like it says, one mesh is created per material. So, all right, splice and merge, we go. Where did we go? Come on now. Well, I don't even really care right now. For some of the bigger ones, it'll make more of a difference. But what we'll just do, first of all, I'm going to hit revert just in case I did anything. And we're going to do mesh simplify. I know I was in the middle of saying something else and I can't remember what it was, so I apologize. So what we're going to do, recursion to children, all this stuff should be checked. Go ahead and we'll hit compute mesh and we'll find out, wow, Yeah, so this thing was 9,298 vertices originally. And so let's try and cut that maybe to 60% or so for LOD 1. Oof. All right. So that looks pretty different in terms of how it starts interacting with the shading. We may be able to say undo curvature and protect texture on these because it just doesn't, those bits don't matter. Yeah, that's what I thought. There are some UVs and so forth on there. And UVs would be where the textures would be mapped. We're not using textures on this. So this is completely irrelevant. So at this point, we're down to 3494. The curvature was what was causing those kind of weird dimples. We actually want the harsh shapes on most of our ships since they're kind of angular. So that makes sense. So, okay, enable prefab usage. And since this is really just a working copy thing, we'll just put this under here, AI controller LOD 1. Now, you know, at this point, we can go ahead and hit apply, and can actually remove mesh simplify from this. And on these three things, we can remove again mesh simplify, and in some cases, it will leave behind a simplifier, which I really hate when it does that. Okay, so now we've got this thing. Let's go ahead and work from this particular point on down. And so we'll just duplicate these into here. I hate that it changes the names like that, but whatever. Such is life. Okay, so at this point, we're close. We can see what all is happening here. It's looking good. Go out. There is a change, but it's not like that is a change, but it's not a super duper incredible dramatic one. And remember, this is just a prototype model anyway. So this could be in use for months during the alpha in particular, because blue was only able to work but so fast. So we want to do a good job with it, but at the same time, this isn't final quality thing. So this is we only want to take so long on these, and the vertex counts on my example ones are just ridiculous compared to a lot of what she's doing, and so hers will naturally compress better. So, and if we wanted to, we can do fade mode of crossfade that makes it so there's not a pop as it goes across, but it also makes it so that in the little median range where it's right between the two of them, it winds up drawing both in order to do the fade. And I'm just noticing now that all the renderers, of course, are gone from the later LODs here because there we go. Come on, LOD2, what's going on here? Did I not drag that in there? Okay, there we go. Yeah, and then here we've got nothing. All right, good. So because I deleted the mesh renderers there from before, you can see it, and it actually shows you here how many triangles there are and how many materials are involved and how many renderers. And I'm not real thrilled about having 3 separate renderers on this. These ought to be batched into one mesh. That's what we ought to be doing. Now, supposed to be the case, and I was using this before and it was working, that the mesh merge estimated time 18.0. Okay, I guess you have to select those directly for that to work. So, okay. So we're kind of going back to the start here. So we've got our merged mesh here, and we can turn off this stuff. And at this point, heck, we can delete the later LODs. We've got this one merged mesh, and called merged mesh, 3 items. And yeah, so those were the originals here. And I can safely delete those. And then we need to save this as an asset, and we can go ahead and say optimize mesh. So, okay, under mesh working here, AI controller LOD 0 dot asset. Now we've got one render. Now that means that's going to be one draw call instead of 3. We just majorly improved the performance of this. Now that does reduce my ability to do little animations and stuff on it that aren't vertex animations, but that's a separate matter, and not going to worry about that right this second. So we can now take this off, and we should be able to hit apply, and then we should be able to hit select the prefab here, and then see it in the project. Your project thing has to be open. So we hit this and we bring this in, we should see LOD 0 and it actually having the merged mesh and all that. So hooray, that worked. So let's, just to be sanitary, let's go ahead, just move this up, call this LOD 0. This is all one mesh now. And then for LOD 0, drag this in, there's only the one renderer now. 5396 triangles. That's a big improvement over what it was before. So this mesh merge from Elodie did a really good job all by itself already. So LOD 0 already is way better than it was before. So now, time for some mesh simplify here. We'll get back on the stick with that. Now, don't need mesh merge anymore. Now we need our mesh simplify and compute mesh just to check the original vertex. Okay, so the vertex count is still the same. So the UDI thing didn't actually reduce the vertex count. All it did was remove the triangle counts a third of that anyway, which makes sense. So I want to go ahead and do fix all mesh renderers and set all materials to default, because this has casting shadows on and so forth, which is not appropriate. And I just noticed. So, alrighty, now we've got this stuff. So LOD1 is kicking in about here. All right, back to this again. LOD1, okay. Mesh simplify. Let's go for the gusto. We said we're not doing curvature and there are no textures to protect. We're cursing at children, there are no children, so it doesn't even matter. Compute mesh, 36, 38. You can see the difference in just how much that changes in terms of shading. Maybe we turn off the borders, let's see what happens. Maybe we should keep the curvature. So much guess and check with some of this. That gets frustrating, I will say. Look at that, keeping the curvature up to the vertex count a lot. Let's try keeping the borders though. Whoa, holy smokes. Oh, edge length, I accidentally turned off. Yeah, that's one you never want to turn off. Okay, so this looks a lot more like what the original did. Preview the original mesh, And yeah, there's more shadowing, but it's not like incredibly drastic. We can come around the side here and see the differences even more. Yeah, it's different, but this is once you get down to it's substantially smaller on the screen. Okay, so prefab usage, mesh working, AI controller LOD1.asset, save, hooray, hit apply. And when we click this, it is pulling up that, which is good. If it was pulling up something else, then we'd have an issue. When I come back here, you can see one render, 5396, 2624 triangles, hooray. All right, so let's get on to LOD2. Now, first of all, I think because of the great distances at which we're seeing things, there's the differences in when we flip to these things, I think, should be kind of different. So, all right, so LOD1 now goes to LOD2, D2, and we already have Mesh Simplify on it. Take Mesh Simplify off of LOD1. I forgot and left that on there. Mesh Simplify on this one. So first of all, let's do our, I don't know if this is going to do the right thing. Let's see. Yeah, that was not good. All right, so we're gonna hit, we want LOD1 simplified mesh. Oops, no we don't, not there. Why is this thing? This is called LOD2 simplified mesh all of a sudden. That is, well, that's strange. Yeah, I can, what the heck? Oh, it's saving the whole prefab. Oh, that's a mess. Okay. Okay, so we've got the original LOD 0. Okay, what a pain. Well, I'm learning some new things here. So what happened is, because this is part of a larger prefab, when we made a prefab out of this child, it kind of flipped out. Now, that's unfortunate. What we want to do is have, we'll make this a new prefab here. And with this mesh here. And so this is a prefab all by itself now. Should be. There we go. All right. It has the simplifier script on it, which it should not. All right, mesh simplify. It's like 60 something. Good enough. Enable prefab usage. Yeah. Mesh working, AI controller, LOD1.asset. The heck? Okay. So we got the .asset and the .prefab. That's what's going on. Okay, cool. All right. Now, so we've got this thing. We'll combine that back into the LOD1 in a little bit. We want to go ahead and remove the component from that and hit apply so that we're sure that it's using the right thing. And we can drag this back in and see, okay, this is appropriate. So what we can then do is drag this up here, call this, well, heck, we can leave it at that name if we want to. Why not? AI controller LOD, just so we can tell where these things are in the hierarchy. They don't have to have any particular name. Drag this in, hit apply. Now this is part of this prefab. So as we go through the LOD groups, we see the big version, then it shrinks, and we get down here and it will do something else. Now, something else, we can go ahead and drag this in here. Now this is where it's handy, where you can start dragging along here. And this isn't even part of that same prefab anymore. That's fine. Still got the stupid simplifier script on there. I hate it when it does that. I'm not sure why it does that, but it does a lot. All right, so I've created a new AOR controller LOD2 dot prefab. Now, mesh simplify on that. No protect texture, no use curvature. Compute mesh, let's see what it starts out at. So good, this is what we had before for LOD1. So we're starting from LOD1, and let's we're going to at least cut it in half, if not more. So one of the things that's an issue right now is actually being able to see what this looks like at this distance. And yeah, that's pretty drastically different. So that's not good. Let's try these things. Oof. All right, so we just can't lose but so many. I wonder what we can do if we keep the curvature, but not the edge length, because now we're getting into territory where it's a little more abstract. Okay. So 65.5 is okay. Oopsies, not there. Let's try 65. Compute mesh. That is close enough. I'm not questioning my sanity on what that is, but yeah, that's even better. All right, so hooray. I wonder if I turn off protect textures and keep borders, if that will look better or worse. Oh, it looks better. Look at that. 26, 70. All right, well, let's try slightly lower then, since we had 66. Okay, wow, look at that. Look at that. Seriously? So use curvature is really doing it here. All right, oh, we passed the point of bad. Okay, cool. 27.7, that, again, that looks good to me. So now we can do enable prefab usage. You know, which thing you use is heavily dependent on the nature of the model in question. Blue has a specific way of modeling when she does it, but then these things are just cobbled together from Legos, basically, that I created myself, so, or that I did from the asset store, or created myself, but usually from the asset store. So they're just, you know, who knows what, they're just junk temporarily. So, all right, drag this in here now. AI controller, LOD2. So now you can see the differences as they go, but this is not terrible, and this is in keeping with, you know, most 3D games. So we at this point we're down to 872 triangles. I mean, that's pretty killer. Now LOD3, this is where some interesting magic's going to happen. So we're going to start again from AI controller LOD2. Gonna make a prefab out of that by dragging and dropping. Okay, mesh simplify time again. Now, I want this under 300 vertices. This is gonna wreck this thing. So let's see how little we can wreck it. So this is the biggest it's gonna be on the screen ever. And that's what it's gonna look like at the moment. So 504, that's too much. 154, that's fine, but that is illegible. we want this to keep the overall bulk, but lose the details. Well, that's no good. Yeah, that's not really what I had in mind. So let's see. Keep borders. That's kind of, sort of getting there, but not really. Protect texture. Yeah, right. Okay. So, this becoming more visible is because of our other AI controller here. Okay, so let's start seeing what sort of mess we're making here when we're at a far distance and see what we can do about this. Now, you can add spheres of influence here and give them more or less relevance. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and add one. I'm going to say is 3 in size. I want this center part in particular to be relevant. So we'll recompute it now with that data. When we're working on final meshes, there's an awful lot of stuff that we can do to try and keep things relevant. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's ridiculous. Orders, good grief. Yeah, look at that. That's awful. Yeah, I have a feeling that okay, now that's pretty good. And the reason I say that's pretty good is because you have overall a lot of visibility of a ring here and some stuff sticking up in the middle. It lost a ton of details on it, but that's fine. This is meant to be just super incredible low res. Now, let's see if we can down this slightly more because we're still above 300 vertices and I want that to be below so that it will dynamically batch. Okay, it's 290. Now you're gonna have to test if this actually dynamically batches or not. And so you may find, oh, it actually needs to be a little bit lower. At this distance, probably going down a few more percentages doesn't even make any difference. Let's try 13 on that. Yeah. So I mean, once we hit 13%, we're at vertex count 254, but those other little things weren't adding anything to it. So what we can do, so if I'm here, this is when this would start kicking in. That's what it looks like. Can you tell that that is completely messed up? I mean, not really, because it's so small on the screen. Doesn't matter what screen resolution you're running at, it has to do with its percentage size on the screen. If 6% of the screen or smaller, in this particular case, is what we're saying. So this is successful. Now, mesh LOD 3, and we remove mesh simplify, hit apply, it adds a simplifier script, we hit remove, we hit apply, and then at this point we can turn this dealie back on. AI controller LOD3 dragged in, and now we can actually look at this in the, ooh, maybe not. Here. Wow, that's laggy. Sometimes the Unity editor gets a bit like that. All right, so let's try this. Yeah, no, it does not work. Okay, interesting. So game view does not play nicely with the LOD groups. That's a shame. If you want the box off, of course, you can hit stop drawing boxes on the Arc and Object Manager. So we can see good transition LOD1, good transition LOD2, and LOD3. It shrinks a little bit, but and hey, if you don't like that, shrinking a little bit. It's more than 10% shrinkage apparently, so say 30% higher. There's absolutely no gameplay ramifications whatsoever. That's causing it to pop up more. Interestingly, the height is not growing or whatever, looking smaller as much. That makes sense because we cut a bunch of things that were sticking out because of the nature of how it was culling versus the things that were sticking up high didn't really change much. So this is a lot less of a shift now when we're looking at it from a distance. And 10% height loss is even closer, I think. Yeah, so there we go. You get down this far and then it's culled. Arguably, say it's culled at 2%. So there we are. And we can hit apply. And at this point, it will just work. There's nothing you have to do. You scroll around and so forth, and it will just work. You can see it happening real time right there. And yep, there are some notable jumps there. And this is a iffy job of LODs. There are some better ways we can do it. For prototyping purposes, this is pretty good. And this is, in all honesty, a really high poly count mesh, which is why I showed you this one as the example, because this one is just particularly non-conducive to good LODs that are not going to be noticeable. What's interesting here is I'm noticing that the LOD, it goes to LOD1 too fast. Like that feels jarring. So look here. I'm already at this point. I should still be in LOD1. So you can get kind of a good feel for that by scrolling around some. And okay, so this is all LOD2, and then once you hit here, it changes some, and then it changes more, and then it goes nutso thin. And it's like, you know what? That's not the most noticeable thing in the world, particularly when you're in the middle of battle and there's an icon above it that is not changing. So, okay, this is actually a better range right here. If we wanted to do crossfade, then this is a lot less effective of a crossfade. Oh, animate crossfade. There we go. Yeah. I mean, that helps, but I'm not sure what the performance impact of that is. So I'm not really sure how I feel about doing the crossfade thing. So I mean, I would keep that off for now. Anyhow, so now we have a ship with LODs on it. This is a complicated ship, and we did it all in one piece. On some other ships, we will intentionally do it in fewer. We'll do it piece by piece so that they will batch individually through dynamic batching, but it's really going to depend on the individual circumstance. And we're going to take a lot more care with the actual final ships than we are with the prototypes, of course. We want the prototypes to be good enough, but not, and good enough so we get the idea of what's going on, and certainly good enough so they help the performance and we can get the performance that we're expecting from the final product, because that's part of the testing during the alpha phase. Um, and if at any point we need to come back and redo these, it's not some sort of grave issue. Make sure and hit save all assets there just to be sure. And doing a last fix all mesh renderers and set all materials to default and remove all junk can be a nice touch when you're talking about a prototype one. Skip set all materials to default if it's not a prototype. So I'll have a separate video on the ones that actually have textures. Probably 2 separate videos on those because those get a lot more complicated. But this is the basics. Thanks for watching.